This is a BBC podcast. You can get all our podcasts and our terms of use at bbcworldservice.com/podcasts.
Hello and welcome to Outlook from the BBC World Service. This is Matthew Bannister with more extraordinary personal stories from around the world. Now, a recent survey revealed that corruption costs India billions of dollars each year. And next month, the government is planning to introduce a strong new anti-corruption law. But whilst the politicians are trying to clean up at the top, one couple in the southern Indian city of Bangalore are tackling bribery and corruption at grassroots level. A year ago, Ramesh and Swati Ramanathan set up a website called I Paid a Bribe, which encourages people to come forward and blow the whistle on the everyday extortion that clogs up Indian society. So far, they've received over 11,000 reports of corruption. Swati told me how corruption affects people from day to day.
It impacts people when they go applying for driver's licenses or for death certificates, birth certificates.
What would happen if you went to apply for a driver's license?
Well, the process is engineered in such a way that it's very easy to allow for rent seeking. So it requires that you fill up a form, and if you want to expedite your driver's license, then you pay a certain amount and you get it done. Or if you want to just go around certain required processes and say, oh, well, I don't want to really do a driving test, you can actually do that and get away with it.
How does the website work in practice?
You can go in and register that you've paid a bribe. You can put in how much you paid for it. The second is, if you want to report that you didn't pay a bribe, that you were asked for a bribe but you resisted, regardless of what it meant for you in terms of setback of getting your work done, you decided not to do it. The third is when you didn't have to pay a bribe, and this is in fact a celebration of those systems and the people within those systems that actually work and the officers that provide you the services without asking you for a bribe. And the fourth is to ask a question. How do you go about getting your service without having to pay a bribe?
So obviously what you've done is show that the corruption is widespread, but also to tap into people's frustration. Presumably they leave their stories about how annoyed they are about what they've had to do.
What's happened, which is somewhat unintended for us, is that people have seen the ipadabribe.com site as a confessional, as something where you come to cleanse yourself and kind of report that, I had to do this, but I couldn't help it. And it validates for us what we started off with, which is let's not moralize to people because we don't know what the constraints of a particular situation are. Someone, for example, who needs to get a passport done quickly because this is their ticket to economic salvation. And they had to bribe the police officer to get that passport verification done. But having done that, these people feel a need to come and say, I felt terrible about doing this and I'm feeling relieved that I've actually reported this here.
And Swati, I understand that the Transport Department in the state where you lived actually use the data from your website to change practices within their department.
Yes, that's right. The head of the Transport Department actually called us up and said this is great for us because so much of the reporting on bribe giving is against my department, and this allows me to go to my staff and say, listen guys, this is not good for our public image, and it's also not good because this is clear evidence that there are things wrong in our own system.
Well, now, what impact has all this had on the way you live your lives? Have you stopped paying bribes altogether?
No, we didn't. We haven't paid bribes in, many years. I can't remember. Let me describe a very interesting incident that took place, which is that I was driving on one of the great, electronic ring roads, which is there in Bangalore. And on that, tolled highway, I was stopped by cops. And there were three of us who were stopped by cops. And I was the last of them. So I started walking out and I said, why have we been stopped? And I met somebody who had just returned to his car. And he said, oh, it's about speeding. Apparently, we were speeding and that's why they've stopped us. And so I said, oh, is that right? So what is it? He gives us a ticket and he says, well, it's a 300 rupee ticket, but I just paid $100 and it's over. So if you just give $100, it's over. So I went to the officer and the officer then said, oh, well, madam, you were speeding. It's only 80 kilometers and you were going higher. And I said, what is the speed that I was going at? It turns out he says, I have a camera, I've recorded it. So I've said, I want two things. First of all, I want that recording, the photograph which shows what speed I am. And secondly, I want to pay my ticket, the 300 rupees. And by the way, finally, I want to say, please don't take a bribe. Stop taking bribes of 100 rupees and letting people get away. Please charge me. He was so spooked. He stopped. He said, please go. I don't want anything. And I said, I demand you ticket me. And he said, no, I will not ticket you. And as I was coming back, I spoke to the third guy and I said, it's 300 rupees. And may I request you, please don't pay a bribe. Please pay the 300 rupees since you were speeding, and don't offer him a bribe.
The redoubtable Swati and Ramesh Ramanathan speaking to me from Bangalore in India. I'd be interested to hear your reaction to that story. How does bribery and corruption affect your life? Send us an email to outlook@bbc.com or post on our Facebook page. Just search for Outlook BBC World Service. But that's all from today's programme. I'm Matthew Bannister. I'll be back at the same time tomorrow with more extraordinary personal stories from around the world. Do join me then.